Welcome to Money Mondays with Melissa, where we talk about financial empowerment while exploring financial assistance available through local, state, and federal governments each month with a diverse group of subject matter experts. Chicago, are you ready to get financially empowered? Well, we've got just what you need. Without further ado, give it up for your Chicago City Treasurer, Melissa Conyears-Ervin.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to a candid conversation today on building wealth today and tomorrow. I am Melody Spann-Cooper, chair of Midway Broadcasting Corporation. You may know our flagship station, WVON. We also have WRLL and a digital streaming platform, Bond TV. And I am so honored to have this conversation with two of my favorite people, two dynamic women who are on the front line of finances. One I've been friends with for over 30 years. Well, not over 30 years, but thereabout. Mellody Hobson, who is the president and co-CEO of Ariel Investments, a global financial investment firm. And of course, our dynamic city treasurer, Melissa Conyears-Ervin. Thank you so much, ladies. I want to jump right into this dynamic conversation on building wealth. And I want to start with you, Treasurer Ervin. There is a difference between wealth and generational wealth. Describe what you believe the difference is, and why is this an important conversation for us to have?
Good. Hello. Thank you so much, Melody. Wonderful question. I'll first say as we get started, I am excited about our discussion on today. Two powerful melodies in their own rights. So certainly I'm excited to even be in this environment on today. What a great question. As Chicago Treasurer, building wealth is something that I think about a lot. I think I have many sleepless nights thinking about that question. But it might be helpful to frame our conversation by defining what we mean when we talk about wealth and generational wealth. We tend to think about wealth as an abundance of money, but generational wealth is anything of monetary value that could be passed down from one generation to the next. That could be money, it could be a house, it could be investments, or even a business. It's not a term that we reserve for someone that you just call wealthy. Even owning a modest home that you can pass on to your kids someday means that they benefit, and your grandkids will benefit from the wealth that you were able to generate in your life. So when you have generational wealth, monetary wealth accumulates over time. So let's say your grandchildren someday sell that home that was passed down to them. Then maybe you're getting the grandchildren, they're getting a better financial start in life than what you had. And for their kids, it will be even better, and so on and so on and so on. And I certainly will not neglect to mention an example we have right here on the line with you, Melody Spann-Cooper, your father, whom we just recently celebrated the homegoing for.
Yeah.
Certainly your father himself went on to be from DJ of WVON to owner of WVON, and co-founded the parent company, Midway, Broadcasting Corporation. He expanded to many other radio stations around the country and passed that generational wealth to you.
Yeah.
And so this is something that we need to talk about more. And one reason that this conversation today is so important is because of the racial wealth gap in America.
Yeah.
In 2019, Black households had 14.5% of the wealth of white households. That's really a devastating number.
Mm-hmm.
And it's stunning because the disparity, and it's really a legacy of slavery and systemic racism. And so this is, I think, when you look at what has transpired in the 20th century, I say that it's only just begun. That's an enormous head start when we look at what has been occurring to build generational wealth, helping more Black and brown families. But we need a more concerted effort to overcome the barriers to build wealth and ensure that Black and brown Americans have the resources that they need to make it happen.
Yeah, I think you are spot on that. And when we think about wealth, Melody, I know you've been on the front line of this for a long time. When it comes to our community, especially generational wealth, sometimes eludes us. Talk to us about why this is important to you.
Well, it's very important to me for a host of reasons, because the only way we can truly have equality in our society is to have economic equality. And Martin Luther King really did focus on that at the end of his life with Operation Breadbasket. We realized civil rights was really about economic rights. And not only those economic rights in terms of us having a better life, but also for us to be able to, as the treasurer has mentioned so eloquently, pass on wealth to our family and create a virtuous circle as opposed to a vicious cycle, which has existed in our community of trying to make ends meet, not being able to save and invest appropriately for our retirement, taking care of children, adult children, taking care of family members at the expense of our own financial security, and then having the whole cycle repeat itself again where we have to be taken care of. So to the extent that we can break out of this cycle, to the extent that we can create an opportunity to save and invest for the long term, and then have the opportunity to pass that wealth on to the next generation, we will have a completely different society. I tell people, and I'm unapologetic about this, that I'm a capitalist with a capital C. I work in the financial markets, but I do believe capitalism doesn't work as well as it should for everyone. It's fallen short. It could be better. It is the best system that is out there, but for it to really reach its full potential, we all have to participate. That's the kind of economic justice that I am looking to be a part of.
That's powerful, Melody, and so true. And when I think about the three of us on this call, all of us coming from the south side of Chicago, Treasurer moving west, but all coming from working class families where that wasn't the discussion often, is generational wealth. No matter how hard they worked, that was just not a conversation we had at the dinner table.
Yes.
Talk to us about that and how we can more formulate a strategy where we are including younger people earlier in a conversation on generational wealth. I'll go to you, Treasurer Ervin.
So I think that I can laugh about this because it's so funny to me. My mother passed on generational wealth and did not even know both Melodies that she was passing on generational wealth. She did not even know the impact that she was making on her kids at the time. As you mentioned, I was born on the South Side, raised on the West Side. I tell people I've had the best of both worlds. I currently live on the West Side now with my husband and certainly my beautiful daughter. But I watched my single mother really work hard to make ends meet. She was incredible, a dynamic woman, God rest her soul, who was very active in the labor movement. I watched her throughout campaigns. She did not inherit generational wealth. She just really worked hard to get to where she was. So it did not matter that her parents before her worked just as hard. The opportunity to own a home and grow wealth was denied to them. But fortunately, my mother was able to take advantage of the opportunity at the time and purchase her own home. And certainly years later, she passed that home on to her family. We have been able to use that as an asset, not just a home. And so I point to that scenario because I think it's an important scenario for many Chicago families, especially on the south and west sides of Chicago, who are working hard and living paycheck to paycheck, making rent every month, but never really able to convert that money into something that will outlast them. Yeah. That's really what building wealth is all about. Wealth that will outlast you. So we want to convert the rental to a mortgage, and that will be able to start that process of generational wealth.
I love that. And Melody, I always love hearing your story of coming up. Can you please share it with us today in short order? So people, it seems so far from Mellody Hobson growing up on the south side of Chicago to sitting on so many dynamic boards and being a real force in the financial world. Talk to us about growing up.
I grew up in Chicago. As you know, I love Chicago so much. It's my favorite city in the world. And I've had the opportunity to go to a lot of cities, but there's nowhere I'd rather be than Chicago. And we moved a lot. I've told this story. I was the youngest of 6 kids. My mom was also a single mom, like the treasurer. And I know what that energy and what that fight is like from watching her. She had 6 kids. I was the last one. Came so late. My siblings are a couple decades older than me. They tease me a lot about that. But really, it was in growing up where sometimes we were on the South Side, sometimes we were downtown, but it was a very unstable life. We used to get evicted and our phone used to get disconnected, our car repossessed. I mean, oh my God, the stories I could tell you, hiding the car. I mean, just crazy, craziness. But it was that experience of uncertainty, financial insecurity, really just, it actually, I think in some ways traumatized me as a child because you have no control, none whatsoever. I was thinking about this recently. I did an interview and I said, when you're 8, 10 years old, you can't get a job. And so you're just sitting there feeling pretty helpless, knowing there's nothing you can do. And ultimately, that really led to my quest to understand money. I became really, really focused on how can I learn about this in a way where I can make different decisions and have different outcomes. Now, I don't say that in any way to denigrate the incredible effort that my mother put into giving me the opportunities that got me this far. But I do think with more knowledge, if we could have financial literacy in school in America, we could make very, very different decisions, because I had a mom who bought Easter dresses instead of paying the light bill. She thought that was important, and it led to a lot of insecurity. Now, in hindsight, all of that got me here, and all of that gives me the information and the wherewithal, and has made me an evangelist on this subject of financial literacy, and wanting to make sure, especially our community, that we have the knowledge and information that we need to make better decisions. One thing I will say about the question you just asked around the topic of investing and money around the dinner table, we do a survey every year with Charles Schwab and Company. It's called the Ariel Schwab Black Investor Survey. And the data is showing, after having done this survey since 1998, that African Americans are starting to be on par with our white counterparts when it comes to just the discussion about money now and stocks and investing around the dinner table. So younger people are having a different experience than the one that maybe we all grew up with. And that is encouraging, even though we have so far to go, especially around the statistics that the treasurer mentioned around the wealth differences that exist in our communities and the giant wealth gap that exists.
That is so powerful. My dad used to say often that ignorance is so expensive.
Yes.
It's
so is poverty.
Yeah, right.
Poverty is very expensive. That was one of my favorite lines, because it helps people to understand when you are poor, you pay more for everything.
Yeah.
You have higher interest rates. You pay more for food. There's so many things. Poverty is expensive.
Yes, it is.
And you're back to a vicious cycle.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Treasurer Conyears, you have amplified the power of the Treasurer's Office in such a dynamic way with forums like this, and also your whole move towards financial literacy. Why is that important to a city treasurer?
I'm just like, yeah, absolutely. I'm on mute. For me, it's so personal. Oh my gosh. First of all, just listening to Mellody Hobson talk about poverty being expensive. That is like so powerful right there. I mean, for us to really grab hold to what was just stated, honestly, is amazing. It behooves us in so many ways to make certain that we educate our community. And so for me, I really, I think about the communities, underserved communities, really as the ones that have been vulnerable, really as the ones that have been overlooked. And I tell my staff all the time, this is great. Obviously, we have the background, we have the education, we have the experience. We can make money for taxpayers. That sounds great. But if we're not changing lives, how are we really making an impact? That's why people have elected us to be here. And so this is such an important topic. I appreciate it. I think about the programs we have in the Treasurer's Office. I'll just mention one, the Hope Inside program. It's a partnership with Operation Hope that is absolutely free for Chicago residents. All of us on this line know so many people that have paid to receive information that unfortunately did not help them. I do not want our residents to be vulnerable to this. And so we have provided financial empowerment, financial literacy for free, helping to make a budget, helping to improve credit, to be able to purchase that home that the family has been dreaming about. That's one of the programs. And I encourage anyone that is listening, please go to our website, chicagocitytreasurer.com. We have so many programs that we do to benefit Chicago residents for free. No gimmicks, nothing we're trying to get out of it except to empower you.
Yeah, that's so powerful. I want to move a little quicker because we're short on time. But I want to talk about you ladies being in the financial industry, right? And a very male dominated industry, right? And you're often at the table where you are the only one, right? How do you, number one, find your voices? And how do you make your voice heard? Let's start with Mellody Hobson.
Years of practice. And I would say it doesn't just happen. But what I do believe is that I've always used my uniqueness as an advantage as opposed to a disadvantage. Now, I don't like this idea of first and only. So I'm not one of these people who wants to keep people out. I want more of us in. I think we should be first of many, not first of one.
Mm-hmm.
But I do believe that when you have a name like Mellody and you're Black and you're a woman and you're in financial services, there aren't a lot of people like you. I remember going to a conference and having someone come up to me and they used my name and there were hundreds of people there. And then someone else did. And I was like, wait a minute, how do they know my name? And then I realized, wait a minute, there aren't any other ones in here. And all of a sudden I said to myself, I could be like Cher or Beyonce. I am going to like milk this. If I am the only one, they are going to know I was here. And so I'm going to use this to my advantage. And that voice became that voice, and finding that voice became understanding the power that I had and the power to actually just in my uniqueness to be heard and be noticed. So not to run away from it, not to shrink from it, but to run towards it.
Yeah.
That created the opportunity. Also, when I am speaking, I speak, and I say this at Ariel all the time, I speak my truth. My truth has a small t. There is truth with a big T, but my opinion is not necessarily truth with a big T. And I have to recognize that, being very clear, this is my opinion, this is what I believe, not being shy about it, and helping people to understand why I believe what I believe, because everyone won't share my truth. And I won't hide my truth from the conversation. I won't keep my voice out of the conversation. So I think it's very, very important for us to speak our truth. John Rogers, who founded Ariel, gave me that permission on the first day. He told me, Mellody, you're going to be in rooms with people who have big titles and they make a lot of money. They don't necessarily have better ideas. I want to hear your ideas. That was a gift.
Wow. That's amazing. That is amazing. And Treasurer Conyears, I can imagine that when you took this role, although you weren't the first African-American female treasurer, your way of impacting it has been quite differently. And talk to us about you being a politician, right? And a lot of times that being looked at as an honorary kind of position. But when you come to play and you come to play with finances, tell us how you've been received and how you get past that. That being that woman at the table of men talking finances.
Yes. So first, as we come to a close today, I know that everyone that have listened to this are in awe, because certainly I know that even I am. I always say that I learn something every day, and I learn something from certainly ingenious women such as yourselves that are on this line. I'll tell you this has been an awesome role as treasurer. I am excited about helping residents, mainly because of my humble beginnings. And I always tell people it is so important to be engaged and to try to look at people that are running for office that are like you, may not necessarily look like you. Share your values. That is so very important. And so being the Black woman in the room, hey, sometimes I'm the only woman in the room. Sometimes I'm the only Black person in the room. Sometimes I'm both, the only Black woman in the room. And this has traditionally been an appointed role. And so it's new to Chicago, having a treasurer that was elected first, coming in, hitting the ground running. And I am excited about it. And I'll tell you, Ariel Investments, one of the managers at our pension funds, and that's why I was glad that were able to invite President Mellody Hobson today. But it's good for residents to see that there are so many opportunities out here. That's how I envision my role. I want them to know when you look at a President Mellody Hobson, when you look at Chairman Melody Spann-Cooper, I want people to know what is out there and is possible. We all come from humble beginnings, but we have been not only blessed, but provided opportunities to be where we are. And I say, it's God is my witness. There's a statement that says, let my work speak for me. And there's a statement that says, oh gosh, I don't forget it. I guess it wasn't important. But anyway, what's important, I wanted that whenever my life goes on, I want it to go down that in Chicago, the first city treasurer that was elected first to office really made an impact and changed this entire role.
Oh, you have. You really have.
Thank you for tuning in to Money Mondays with Melissa. We hope you enjoyed today's session and found value in the topic of discussion. Follow Chicago City Treasurer on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and LinkedIn to stay on top of all upcoming events. Remember, if you have any questions, feel free to reach out to the Chicago Treasurer's Office at 312-744-3356 or visit www.chicagocitytreasurer.com. We'll see you next time for Money Mondays with Melissa.